horrific racist comments that he's making, and he seems to enjoy what he's saying. And yes, it riles up his MAGA base because they are as xenophobic as he is.
Is he painting them as being violent? I mean, would Lake and Riley think they were violent? Would Rachel Marin think they were violent? Would Jocelyn Nungare in Texas think they were violent? How about the girl that was raped in broad daylight in New York City? How about the girl that was kidnapped in Missouri? Yeah, there are violent people.
Let's check in on CNN again. Now, they're getting ready for the debate tomorrow. And by doing their debate prep, what they're doing is they're practicing lying about Donald Trump and calling him, you know, outrageous things like racist and violent rhetoric and all that stuff. Now, here's the latest one. You know, they've got one guy on that network, one guy, Scott Jennings, out of Kentucky. He's the only guy there who is allowed to be on the air and actually challenge their messaging about Donald Trump, their lies about Donald Trump. And by the way, if you look at social media, whenever he's on the air, you'll see the left-wing lunatics screaming, "Why do you have this man on? Well, this is terrible television. He's the worst. I'm going to turn the channel as long as so." So in other words, CNN's audience, they don't even want this one voice on there. The one guy who challenges the anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-conservative, anti-American rhetoric that you see in their programming every single day. So here's the latest from CNN, and here's Scott Jennings doing his best.
And what the Biden campaign is going to do, as they should, they're going to use those comments as yet another demonstration of just how anti-immigrant, anti-Latino, anti-American Donald Trump is, as he's trying to convince people outside of his MAGA coalition that he actually wants them to support him. He's never going to be able to do that with these horrific racist comments that he's making. And he seems to enjoy what he's saying. And yes, it riles up his MAGA base because they are as xenophobic as he is, but it does nothing to try to add support from the voters, the independents, the suburban women, the other coalitions that he needs in order to win. So as a Democrat, by all means, keep saying what you're saying. It's exactly who he is at his core. As a Latina and as an immigrant, it makes me want to throw up, frankly, to tell you.
Well, I think that it's fair for us now to take a pause and see exactly what comments they're talking about, right? These xenophobic, racist things that make her, a Latina, throw up. Do you notice that she speaks perfect, you know, non-accented English the entire time? And then the second she says and identifies herself as Latina, it's not Latina, it's Latina. God, that's just so insidiously boring. Okay, so what are they talking about? What did Trump say that is so racist, so outrageous, that reflects the racism from the MAGA crowd? That's you she's talking about. Oh, yeah. No, this isn't about Trump. It's always about you. Remember that. All right, here's what he said. This was at the Faith and Freedom Coalition this weekend, right? In Washington, D.C. here.
Tough. It is so tough. Dana White. Did anyone ever hear of Dana White? He's a legend, right? UFC, ultimate fighter, ultimate fighting. And he's a fantastic man. I said, Dana, I have an idea. Why don't you set up a migrant league of fighters and have your regular league of fighters? And then you have the champion of your league. These are the greatest fighters in the world. Fight the champion of the migrants. I think the migrant guy might win. That's how tough they are. He didn't like that idea too much, but actually it's not the worst idea I've ever had.
It's just Trump. It's just Trump going off teleprompter and being funny because he is funny. And now their hair is on fire. He wants to set up cage matches of the migrants and have them fight each other. And this is going to be a government mandate. And he's going to get his MAGA crowd in the Congress and Senate to sign it right after they sign laws that make every woman dressed like Handmaid's Tale. This is who they are. And we've got to stop them now because democracy is in danger. I mean, seriously, that's a CNN segment, what I just did for you. That's what they do. All right, so those are the comments they're so upset about. That's what makes this Latina want to vomit. All right, so here comes Scott Jennings with his reply.
Tell you the truth, Scott.
2/3 of the American people support Donald Trump's policy prescriptions for immigration right now, including a majority of Hispanics in the United States.
Let me just tell you, do you see them as racist and xenophobic comments?
There's CNN being CNN. There. I mean, that is a beautiful, it's finally his turn to talk after all of that vile that you just heard. Makes me want to vomit, and they're racist and they're xenophobic and this. And so he starts by saying, okay, so there's a little reality check here. The polls show that 2/3 of the American people actually want Donald Trump to handle immigration. Oh, but what about the racism? We called you racist, and now you're compelled to reply. So, of course, he gets interrupted. This is good debate prep, right? They're practicing. Listen, Biden is hidden away for 2 weeks getting all of his injections and getting his chip implanted in his brain so they can communicate with him, right? And Trump's out there. What the Babylon Bee said, Trump is screaming at dementia patients in an old age home so he can get his debate prep in and his practice. CNN's got to practice too. These things don't just happen on their own. You got to get your reps in. So here's a good example. Interrupt the person who's talking and start screaming racism at them. All right, let's go back a little.
2/3 of the American people support Donald Trump's policy prescriptions for immigration right now, including a majority of Hispanics in the United States. Let me just tell
do you
you
see them as racist and xenophobic comments? I mean, he's painting migrants as
No.
being violent. They have violent tendencies, right? And of course, dehumanizing them to being entertainment for the rest of us.
Is he painting them as being violent? I mean, would Lake and Riley think they were violent? Would Rachel Marin think they were violent? Would Jocelyn Nungare in Texas think they were violent? How about the girl that was raped in broad daylight in New York City? How about the girl that was kidnapped in Missouri? Yeah, there are violent people in the country. And yeah, Donald Trump uses colorful language, but the bottom line is immigration is killing Joe Biden's campaign right now. This is why he has a low approval rating. This is why Donald Trump is honing in on this. And people are responding to it, and people are fed up with it. And if you want to call 2/3 of the country racist or xenophobic because they're in a mood right now that they want this fixed, yes, agree. By all means, go on. It's not going to work.
Yeah, thank you to Newsbusters for that. And one other point I want to make here before we pivot a bit and show sort of a larger expanded wheelhouse right now of what CNN is in the midst of. But the obvious retort here is, just because of those violent murders and rapes at the hands of illegal immigrants coming into this country, that doesn't mean they're all violent. And of course that's true. And nobody said, did you hear Donald Trump in that video that we played say that all of them, every single one of them? No, he just said, maybe you should have a migrant ultimate fighter league and then have them fight each other. And then the winner of that fights the winner of that. Obviously, he's not saying, yes, that's right, every single one of them. Of course he wasn't saying that. And to take what he said at that speech as some sort of, that's like he put out a policy paper and a proposal that he wants to, it's stupid. It's stupid, right? But the obvious reply that they're going to say is, well, they're not all violent. They're not all violent. And nobody's saying that they're all violent. But see, here's what's interesting. Here's what's very, very interesting. Let me take it back to the beginning so you can hear what this Democrat says here. And apparently, if you point out the murders and rapes at the hands of illegal immigrants, you are being racist by suggesting that every single illegal immigrant is a murderer and a rapist, right? That's what they immediately expect. The second you point out that these crimes are happening and they're being perpetrated by illegal immigrants, you're accused of being racist by painting with a broad brush, right? And they have to leap in front of you and say, but they're not all doing that. Not all of them are like that, right? But look at what she says about people who support Donald Trump.
And what the Biden campaign is going to do, as they should, they're going to use those comments as yet another demonstration of just how anti-immigrant, anti-Latino, anti-American Donald Trump is, as he's trying to convince people outside of his MAGA coalition that he actually wants them to support him. He's never going to be able to do that with these horrific racist comments that he's making. And he seems to enjoy what he's saying. And yes, it riles up his MAGA base because they are as xenophobic as he is.
See what she did? You see what she did? So again, let me just tell you the rules here. He just said that Trump's MAGA base is as xenophobic as he is. Okay, first of all, he's not xenophobic. But she just said the MAGA base is as xenophobic. In other words, every single one of you every single one of you who consider yourself MAGA or a Trump supporter or what have you, she literally just said that all of you are racist. And yet when you point out the actual rapes and murders perpetrated by illegal immigrants, they immediately jump in and say, well, that's racist because you're suggesting that all of them are, when you literally didn't say all of them are. But she literally said all of you are racist. And they get away with it. And the second you point out the actual crimes, they accuse you of false racism. Because this is what happens on CNN. This is what they do. And it's a great reflection of what the media does across the board, because the CNN is kind of the gold standard of how the media operates. They still pretend that they're unbiased. They still pretend that they're just delivering news. And let's turn to another one of those news programs, because they had one of the front runners on many people's scorecards to be Donald Trump's running mate, Vivek Ramaswamy. Even though I think Donald Trump has already said that he's not going to choose Vivek. I think that he's made that clear, but maybe that was just sort of a bluff to keep people guessing. Well, watch how they treated Vivek the other day on CNN.
You have some experience, recent experience on the debate stage, and you were pretty aggressive. And some people liked it, but other people didn't. For instance, the other candidates who were on that stage with you, Nikki Haley said, "You're just scum." Chris Christie called you the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So what lessons did you learn about aggressive tactics in debating?
Well, look, one of the things I would say is just be yourself and be.
I'm sorry. I can't let him get away with that. The question. Boy, you were on the debate stage, and let's face it, you were a big when you were debating those people, and everybody said it. Let me quote these other people who also said you were a giant. So what's it like to be such a when you're debating? What is that premise? The fact that Vivek just sort of lets it fall off his shoulder and just goes on to his answer is actually a great sign for his temperament. All right, go ahead, Vivek.
Well, look, one of the things I would say is just be yourself and be true to Americans. I think the people of this country are able to snuff through pre-prepared, pre-canned talking points. One of the things I love about President Trump is he's not a guy who just sticks to a script. He's a guy who actually speaks his heart and mind. But one piece of advice I would give him, and I've gotten to know President Trump, especially after I've left the presidential race, is he is actually somebody who deeply cares about national unity. And that does not come across in the media's normal reporting of him.
Did you see the reaction of the journo head here, the talking head, the person whose job it is to, have a good haircut and read a teleprompter? Watch when Vivek Ramaswamy says that he actually cares about national unity. Watch the CNN dude. Keep your eye on him. All right. Here, he's going to say it right now.
Somebody who deeply cares about national unity. And that does not come across in the media.
You see that? What? That's a lie. We know better because we've created this myth about him. Again, this is who CNN is. This is all debate prep, just so you're ready for CNN's performance tomorrow night.
He has normal reporting of him. So one of my pieces of advice to him, and I think that he will be successful in getting this across, if not at the debate for the rest of the campaign, is how much he does care about reuniting one nation in this country. Biden pledged to unite the country. He has failed miserably. And I think that this debate tonight is a chance to focus on the vision for the future rather than relitigate.
Have you ever looked at Donald Trump's social media account, like on major national holidays where he says Happy Easter to all, even the scum, and filth of the earth, things like that? That's a message of unity?
By the way, real fast, that is literally a message of unity. This is what I love. This is how they're so stupid. First of all, they don't get the joke. Okay. But secondly, that is literally a message of unity. Happy Easter to everyone, even the people who I think are jerks. See, unity is not pretending that you like people and that there aren't offensive people out there who hate you. That's just lying. That's just pretending. That's being a phony. Unity is, I know I disagree with you. I know that you're obnoxious. I know you think I'm obnoxious. I know you hate me. But happy Easter anyway. And so the fact that they're so oblivious to the reality of that and they don't get the joke is, well, it tells you everything.
Well, look, obviously, because the media is actually picking a lot of the things that he said in a position of having been a fighter. Look, that first term had to be about fighting fire with fire because that's the position.
No. I'm talking about like 3 weeks ago. I'm talking about 3 weeks ago. Do you think his social media account is unifying?
Look, I don't think social media is set up to be unifying, period. And that's not a left-wing or a right-wing point. That's a 280 characters point. But I'm revealing a point that I think is counterintuitive to a lot of people, but is important.
It's counterintuitive because they don't
revitalizing the greatness of America
see a message of unity.
Yeah, but and good job for Vivek in going after this and doing a really good job on it. I wouldn't have had that patience or understanding. But this reveals CNN for who they are and what they do. And here's the most important part, especially, again, this is your debate prep segment, so you can see what CNN's doing to get ready for tomorrow night. It's already baked in the cake that everybody assumes two things. Number one, that Donald Trump is a racist, xenophobic, obnoxious person who doesn't care about unifying the country and who is horrible to the people who don't support him and don't like him, which, by the way, is not true. But that's the narrative that's been written about him. And yes, sometimes Trump doesn't help his own cause in sort of amplifying the stereotypes about him. But it doesn't matter because those objective moderators for CNN, they've got it ingrained in their conscience, and they're going to approach tomorrow night the same way. The other thing that everybody knows to be true is that Joe Biden is one of the nicest, kindest, gentlest, most harmonious figures in American politics over the last 5+ decades. That everybody likes Joe, and that he's such a kindly old man. He's like good old Uncle Joe, who's there with a chuckle and a pat on the back, even if it's somebody that he disagrees with. And they're not going to show him screaming about MAGA fascists who are trying to destroy our country. He's not going to show him yelling at reporters who dare to ask him a question and calling them every name in the book. We see that Joe Biden. We know the truth about Joe Biden. We know that Joe Biden has been one of the most mean-spirited, divisive political figures in the last half a century in America. And if you don't believe me, ask the little kids who didn't get to get bused to a white school because he threw down with the racists back in the 70s. I'm just quoting Kamala Harris right now. You can ask the family of Robert Bork, who Joe Biden maligned, disparaged, and destroyed for his own political futures. You can ask all of the people he plagiarized when he was running for office back in the late 80s. Oh, I forgot one guy. You can ask the guy who drove the truck that hit his late wife's car back in the 70s, who Joe Biden lied about and said was a drunk driver. You can ask Robert Bork and his wife and his family as he was dragged through the slime by Joe Biden for his own political purposes. Hey, why not ask Paul Ryan? I doubt he'll answer, honestly. But ask Paul Ryan about all the lies and the insults that he threw during the vice presidential debate back in 2012. And for that matter, you can ask Mitt Romney, because Joe Biden lied about him and said that he was a racist and he was going to put black people in chains if he were elected. And you can ask each and every one of us who has seen Joe Biden over the years, and certainly over the last 3.5 years, as the mean-spirited, angry, obnoxious jerk that he always has been. But see, CNN, they don't see that. They've got their narrative, and nothing's going to get in the way of it. So now you're prepped. You're prepped for the debate tomorrow. Can't wait. Really.